Alabama continues to be the pipeline for players and coaches getting to the NFL. Some of that's tongue-in-cheek, some of that's kind of true, but the bottom line, Bill O'Brien going to the NFL, and the good folks in Tuscaloosa are excited about getting a new individual to call the plays there. And I want to be very, very clear on this. From what I was told, Alabama did not nudge Bill O'Brien out. It wasn't this thing of, hey, Bill, we're getting some kickback from the fan base. People aren't happy with us. We're not happy internally. We didn't reach our standard. We got to go another direction. To my understanding, this was always the plan. Bill O'Brien has a short stay in Tuscaloosa, gets back to where his heart is at in the NFL. Now, for Alabama fans, this is a win-win, or as Michael Scott would say, a win-win-win, in the sense that you now will have a new individual calling plays, and Nick Saban will revamp the offense a little bit, and we'll tell you more about what they're looking at in terms of what that could look like, the different approach as to what you saw from the previous year, and Bill O'Brien gets to go to the NFL. 3 wins. So, as for who could be the next offensive coordinator in Tuscaloosa, here's what we're hearing. Or rather, here's what we're not hearing, because so far, everybody close to that program is telling us, hey, Bama's being real quiet about this thing. Nick Saban, as he typically does, probably has some face cards up his sleeve, probably an ace in the hole, but he's not telling you. And so it's very, very hush-hush right now, but going forward, we know a couple of things in terms of themes to track with this offensive coordinator search. The first is they would like to acquire somebody who's also going to serve as a quarterback coach. One, because whoever steps in is going to oversee a new starter, whether it's Jalen Milroe, whether it's Eli Holstein, Dylan Lonergan. I mean, Ty Simpson. I think I might have already said Ty Simpson. You got a new starter at quarterback. You want someone to help oversee their maturation. The second piece of that, which is probably more glaring, and I would imagine more of the catalyst behind this desire, Bill O'Brien was the quarterback coach for you, in addition to being the OC. So he left that role as the QB coach vacant. The second theme is they would like to have a more balanced approach offensively. Alabama last year threw the ball right around 35 times a game. People close to that program said they want to get back to being classic Alabama. And you know what I mean by that. The Alabama where they can just set the tone and assert their will on you by their physicality. When they choose to run the football, they will run the football with a lot of success. Not that Jahmyr Gibbs wasn't successful, but they would like to have a little bit more of an edge to them offensively, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Then off of that, they can beat you through the air, they can be explosive, they can have some play action. That is what they would like to have more of going forward. So for Alabama, that's the wish list, QB coach, in addition to OC, and more of an edge offensively. But right now, nobody is really letting anything out of the camp in Tuscaloosa. If you're not yet subscribed, we got you covered. All things college football, 365 days a year, we cover this beautiful sport, and we appreciate you allowing us to do so. Come join this community if you have not already. Also, follow me on the social channels at JD Pickell on Twitter and on Instagram. Stay wide open, like Isaiah Bond will be, I believe, in the coming year in 2023, whoever's the OC. Couple of names being thrown out. And again, this is all speculation. I don't believe any of this is really coming from Alabama, or at least not to my understanding. But the name that comes up the most after talking to people that cover that program, Jeff Lebby, offensive coordinator for Oklahoma. Now, people in Oklahoma circles would tell you, not true. Not true. He's just doing this. This is just out there for leverage with Oklahoma. Maybe so. But the Jeff Lebby solution on paper, to me, makes a lot of sense. Think about when Nick Saban switched philosophies, and you know what I mean by that. When he decided to adapt to the game and the way it was headed with spread offenses and tempo and vertical passing game, it was after they lost to Texas A&M and Johnny Manziel. Then they hired Lane Kiffin. The game now is trending a little bit more towards spacing and still with tempo and running a lot of plays and being able to attack vertically. They still, but still at the same time having that edge running the football. Jeff Lebby, when he still has that explosive passing element, he still is a run-first kind of offensive coordinator. And I think when you saw A&M kind of be the catalyst to him hiring Lane Kiffin, the game against Tennessee this year for Alabama could be the catalyst to why you would hire someone like Jeff Lebby. Pete Thamel said it on the Paul Feinbaum show. I think Saban saw what Josh Heupel's kind of style of offense can do. Jeff Lebby would be a similar vein of that. Still running the football first, but having spacing and an explosive passing attack off of that. Another name that gets thrown out there is Jeff Scott. And this to me just feels like a Saban-esque kind of hire. I don't know how much smoke is really around Jeff Scott in Alabama. He just actually got hired back to Clemson as an analyst, an offensive analyst. But he was formerly an offensive coordinator at Clemson, had a good deal of success there at Clemson, and then went to USF, was a head coach, and just kind of struck out as a head coach. How many times have you and I seen together with our own eyeballs that work just fine? Nick Saban, see a coach, great track record as a coordinator, great track record as a coach in general, then goes to be a head coach somewhere and it just doesn't work the first time around. Picks them up, dusts them off. They come to Alabama, absolutely crush it, get rehabilitated back into college football society, and go on to do great things. That's one of the reasons why this job is going to be so highly coveted. You can have a lot of different coaches come into this position and have success because there's a ton of talent and you're coached under the greatest of all time. So you develop as a coach, and also you have some of the best ingredients in the college football world at your fingertips to succeed. Not a bad deal. Not a bad deal by any stretch of the imagination. So Jeff Scott, like I said, just kind of feels like a Saban-esque kind of hire. Dan Mullen, that name's going to get thrown out a lot. Currently, I think doing a pretty good job on TV, to be honest with you, and has grown a lot. And that's a name that I would imagine, just from an optics perspective, is fun to throw out there. I don't know if that would work. I'm going to go ahead and lean away from that just because of the demands that come with recruiting at Alabama. And the knock on Dan Mullen has been, hey, recruiting isn't necessarily something that he has historically prioritized a ton. Ask the good folks in Gainesville. So Dan Mullen, to me, I'm not buying, but it's a name that will end up on a lot of hot boards. For me, though, I'm not thinking the Dan Mullen thing will have a whole lot of smoke. Here's the other internal feel with people that cover Alabama. A couple of people have told me Nick Saban and Alabama may go back to the NFL to get their man. And think about it, the last two hires, both Steve Sarkisian from the NFL to the Bama OC, to Bill O'Brien, NFL to Bama OC, that's been the recent track record. They think there's a good possibility that they'll do that. So someone to keep an eye on, the Eagles quarterback coach, Brian Johnson, currently doing a phenomenal job in Philadelphia. Remember how people were talking about Jalen Hurts coming out of the draft? He's a project quarterback, a lot of tools, great story. Really had a good year at Oklahoma after he transferred from Alabama. Like, we root for the guy, but he's a project quarterback, gimmicky. That was the verbiage around him. Now, I don't know if y'all noticed, but the Eagles are about to go play for an NFC title. And I think Brian Johnson deserves a lot of credit for that, with the way that he has helped develop Jalen Hurts. And don't get it twisted, Jalen Hurts has put in a ton to be successful, but the working relationship between QB coach and quarterback, I think, is worth mentioning. So that one can make a lot of sense. Cliff Kingsbury, to me, is sort of the other fun name that gets thrown out there, with Dan Mullen being, the TV guy, and Cliff Kingsbury being a flashy name, former NFL head coach, has had success at the college level himself. Listen, I'll just be real with y'all. I don't know anything, but I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is in any rush to get back to football. Maybe for the right job, but going from Thailand, just kicking it with your buyout, and coming back and being under the thumb of Nick Saban, those are two different worlds we're living in here. Now, far be it for me to say he won't do it, but I'm going to go ahead and place my money that Cliff Kingsbury is not going to be the next offensive coordinator at Alabama. That's where my money goes. I've lost many a bet before. That's where my money rides right now. So I'm going to go ahead and call my shot here. Like I said, everyone's speculating. Everyone's throwing out, names that could be or might be or would be. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you who I think it's going to be. I believe that, I'm going to guess rather, that Joe Brady, current quarterbacks coach for the Buffalo Bills, drawing interest from the New York Jets, and former passing game coordinator for LSU, will be the next offensive coordinator at Alabama. Here's why. Fits the QB pedigree. Worked with Burrow. Burrow won the Heisman under him. Got credited for a lot of his success, did Joe Brady. Currently, working with one of the best quarterbacks in all the land. in Josh Allen. That quarterback pedigree that he could help Jalen Milroe, help Ty Simpson, help Eli Holstein, Dylan Lonergan, help any of those guys develop and say, I've seen the best there is at college and professional levels. I can help y'all. To the same token, innovative. What he helped do with that LSU passing game, granted, he had some of the best receivers in college football history, but what he did with that team and that offense, heck, they hung up a few points in Alabama now. They put up some numbers that day. I would be hard-pressed to imagine that Nick Saban just forgot about that. So, yeah, it's a guess. That's all it is a guess. Like I said, I don't know anything, but Joe Brady, to me, fits the NFL track record, offensive innovation, desire, it sounds like, quarterback pedigree. Like, I think that would be a great fit for Alabama. But regardless, Alabama will have their pick of the litter. The feel also is that Nick Saban is not worried about this. The defensive coordinator is where his focus is. It sounds like right now that really has his attention. That search has been going on longer. But the defense is his baby. Secondary is his baby. Like, that's where his attention lies. He understands a lot of coaches will want this job. Alabama does not need to gamble on anybody. They can be as specific as they'd like to be. They have access to a lot of people that still have good jobs right now. They can get somebody very proven to be the next OC. But again, Joe Brady is my pick. If we're right, great. If not, I'll give you a bunch of other names. And Nick Saban is going to get whoever is best for him and his football program to get back to the top of the college football landscape. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.